Greetings, everyone. My name is William Porter. Welcome to this edition of Storytelling Time. Today's podcast is another interview session, and in fact, we have Ms. Becky Jacobs with us again today. She was with us last week, and we're so happy to have you back with us, Becky, to share more of your insight.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to speak with you, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Well, last week we focused on professional growth, and this week I'd like for us to deal more so with personal life away from business, with understanding that the quality of your personal life influences a great deal the success of your business. So tell us this, why do you think your personal life is so important as far as business development in your estimation in general?
You know, I'll say that it's rare that I'll find someone who is successful as a business person, who's a strong leader, who is motivated and contributing to the community and doing great things, and yet completely miserable and unhealthy and right and not taking care of the relationships in their lives. Because at the end of the day, we're one person. We have 24 hours, however we choose to use them. And it's about being successful in life. Career is just one aspect. And, you know, frankly, when it comes to what's most important, I feel like it's not the primary aspect. It's our health and our family and our faith, and all of those pieces come together to make us who we are. And that allows us to be successful from a career perspective. So it's really looking at that bigger picture, making sure that we are whole as individuals, healthy, body, mind, and spirit, and bringing our best selves to what we do each day.
Well, you mentioned last time what you do away from business. We talked about, of course, healthy outlets, and you talked about exercising, and also you mentioned doing it for your sanity as opposed to vanity.
Yes.
Could you repeat that for maybe some of our viewers and listeners who may not have caught that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
about what you said last week?
Sure.
Sanity versus vanity.
Yes, I use that saying often because I think many perceive exercise as something that's done for weight management, the number on the scale. It's a should. I should work out. I should eat healthy, as opposed to really being critical to our success in life. It's what brings us energy and creativity and motivation. And, you know, those who are committed to doing it regularly will say, I just can't function without it. It's what gives me the energy and the joy and that rush of just happiness, because I'm doing something that I enjoy doing as opposed to seeing it as a chore. I say exercise for sanity and not just for vanity, because there is so much of a mental impact that comes from physical activity. This doesn't mean that you have to run marathons. It doesn't mean that you have to do, boot camp style, high intensity. Frankly, whatever it is that brings you joy and gets your heart pumping, do that. Get your blood flowing, get the energy going in your body. But that's what really allows you to be successful. That's what drives many people forward, especially when it's viewed as something that's part of your life as opposed to one more obligation that you need to check off the list.
Well, I want to transition now into faith. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that in the mastermind meeting where you gave your presentation, you mentioned that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is being afraid and doing it anyway.
Yes.
And so basically, you said that courage is another way of saying faith. So my question is, what exactly is the difference between courage and faith?
That's a great question. I think for me, faith is knowing that no matter which step you take next, you will figure it out, right? It's that um, understanding deep in your soul that you have what it takes to keep putting one foot in front of the other and pushing yourself through whatever it is you're tackling. I think courage is what often gets people started, right? It's that sense of leap and the net will appear. I think in many ways they're very much connected and related. I've got a painting in my bedroom. It says, "Faith is stronger than fear." It's recognizing that courage and faith are intertwined in many ways. It's what pushes you forward. But I think faith is knowing that no matter what happens, you're going to be okay. You're going to keep taking one step after the other. And in some ways, courage is what gets you started, right? It's that first step, if you will, into that darkness. But I think they're very related. And, we often see those who are successful, or maybe they're standing on a stage in front of thousands of people, or doing something that we would consider impossible, and we think they must be just filled with this this courage and how much you would admire that. And the reality is, many of them will tell you that they're scared to death and they're doing it anyway, right? You don't have to you don't have to get to the point where you are 100% confident. You just have to keep taking each step one after the other. And that's what ultimately drives you forward. It's having that faith that you will figure it out.
I was talking to a public speaker not too long ago. As a matter of fact, he gave an interview and he mentioned that every time he speaks, he has these nerves or these lumps in his stomach. And but he loved that, because otherwise he didn't think he would be humble enough to really communicate what he wanted to communicate. So you have to move into whatever you're doing, sometimes being afraid, but as you indicated, you do it anyway. And usually things happen the way they should happen, simply because we have a lot of help, divine help, as you know, as you indicated. But speaking of that divine help, I want to stick with outlets, healthy outlets. And I'd like to ask you, if you would consider faith as being one of these outlets that can keep you or keep your sanity, or would you say that faith is more than just an outlet? It's a part of your whole being. What do you have to say about that? Do you separate the two?
I often say faith is a foundation that you build on, like that you build most of your life upon. And I would say an outlet would be prayer, for example, or expressing your faith through service or helping others. For me, that's an outlet, right? Anytime I can help someone else in their journey or just provide some encouragement, I feel like that's me exercising my faith. And that's an outlet because it feels good to help other people. It feels like you're living out the purpose for which you've been created. So I would say faith is the foundation that we build our lives upon, but there are also outlets where you're expressing your faith either through prayer or through service that allow you to maintain that healthy body, mind, and spirit that you need to thrive in life.
Great. Well, let me ask you this. Do you have a favorite scripture? And how does it help you in both your personal as well as professional life?
That's a great question. I was talking with someone earlier and where I don't necessarily memorize a scripture, and I knew as soon as you would ask me, I would forget the ones that mean the most. I actually have them around me in my home office, in my room, my bedroom, just to reflect back on. And for me, it's just a combination of multiple scriptures that continue to guide and encourage me and inspire me at different times. Whether it's reading a daily reflection and just saying that's exactly what I needed at the right time. But I wouldn't say that I necessarily have a favorite.
Well, let me give you a favorite scripture of mine.
Right.
Maybe you can make a comment on that. And that happens to be Romans 8:28, and you may be familiar with it. It says that all things work together for the good to those who love God, to those who are the called according to his purpose. So how do you see this particular scripture as relating to your success in business?
That's a good question. I feel like when we're doing what we feel called to do, that's how we can ultimately add the most value to our community, to others around us, how we can truly be of service. Not being afraid to use our gifts, even if we at times feel like not ready, not prepared, right? This isn't, I need more to be my best possible self, but really stepping out with that faith that I'm doing what I've been prepared to do. I've often heard God doesn't call the prepared, he prepares the called. And knowing that this is what you're sent to do. So just keep putting one foot in front of the other and you'll figure it out. He's there to guide you.
But this is really interesting to me, at least, because the scripture says that for those who are the called, and what this implies to me is that maybe we've been called much earlier than we think. Way back, I mean, most of us have a background in faith, and quite often experience reflect that. At least my experience, I can think back to when I was very young, 4, 5, 6 years old, and some of the things that happened at that early age, I can see now, reflecting back, that it was a benefit, actually. Mm-hmm. Things that happened at that time. Now, of course, at that time, I didn't think so. I didn't think anything about it. But in other words, I think that we may have been called much earlier, and then eventually we come around to doing what we were supposed to do. And I'm thinking about the Apostle Paul, for example, in the scripture, where he was knocked down from his horse on the road to Damascus. But I would think that he may have been called much earlier than that. In other words, God saw him in terms of what he ended up doing in leading the people through his writings much earlier than that, much earlier than that, when he was on the road to Damascus, when he was persecuting Christians, for example. So anyway, that's kind of interesting as far as that particular scripture is concerned. I thought I would kind of add that. Do you have any comments on that, or not?
Well, I think as humans, we're all called to serve others. We're all called to use our gifts and our talents to make a better life for ourselves, for our communities, for our families. There are those who have a foundation of faith and who are listening more intently to that particular call and that message. And there are others who are simply going through life, without that benefit necessarily, but still making a huge impact. So, I feel like we're each here to do something, and it may not be something amazingly huge, right? We're not all called to be, in certain positions, but I feel like recognizing that we have the power through our words and our actions each day to make a difference, whether it's to one person or 1 million people. It's recognizing that that's our responsibility, and to use our gifts in the way it's intended, and to let others serve us. There are times where we all need something of others. We don't have to be the ones to always be helping. There are times where we need to allow others to feel good about helping us as well.
Okay, that's great. Well, we're going to go ahead and take a break now, Becky, and we'll be back in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. I'd like to switch gears a little, Becky, and I want to ask you about some current events that we're dealing with. We've been in a virtual environment for almost a year now. How has your family been during this time, and have you all been able to cope effectively with this coronavirus?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. When we say we've been in a remote environment, I've actually worked remote out of my home office for more than 7 years. So, and prior to that, I managed teams that were often dispersed around the world. So, for me, working in this video conference world is nothing new. My husband transitioned to working from our home office before the virus struck. So that was in January of last year. So from a working perspective, we were kind of used to it. It was just how we've already gone through the adjustments. My kids have adapted the best they possibly could. Like most kids, online learning is not the same. I think what it's taught us, and frankly, opening Christmas presents over Zoom is weird, but it's better than nothing. So I feel like just like most families have done, it's not what you would have wished for, but we're making the best of it. I think it makes us even more intentional about reaching out to people because you're worried about them, right? It's not just business as usual. It's making sure, how are you doing? Is there anything I can do to help? For those, frankly, who have young kids, my brother and sister-in-law have a 2-year-old at home, and she is a teacher. They also have, two children, and one in middle school, one in high school. So when I see families that have to deal with that dynamic, I think, oh my gosh, right? How do you get through each day with sanity? But it reminds me to reach out and to encourage and, just connect. So I think that it's reminding us, this virus, this pandemic, this isolation is reminding us that we need social connection, not just our families, which are lovely, but it's all of the other aspects of social connection and social well-being. It's our faith communities, it's our, friends, it's our work, our coworkers. We need all of those other people. Kids need friendships and teachers and coaches. So I think more than anything, it's reminding us of the value of that human connection. And my hope is that we won't forget that once whatever normal ends up being, once we're able to connect and do these things again. And there's a great deal of efficiency that has come out of being remote. There are people that I've been able to connect with, and all of a sudden virtual coffee is not weird. So I hope we'll continue that piece as well, because there's some real value to that and efficiency that comes with being able to connect with more people, even if it is over a screen.
Well, yeah, things will be different once we return back to near normal, maybe. I know we have friends who say that they really like the idea of virtual congregation as far as church is concerned. They may have to think hard about returning once things get back to this quote unquote normal. We don't know, but I know we all would like to return to something different than what's now. I think we would agree with that. But one last question, it kind of relates to what I just asked you, and that is, there are a lot of things that are causing stress today. If you allow these things to make you stressful, talking about social unrest, political and racial divisions, social isolation, you mentioned that, among other things. And as I indicated earlier, and I'm sure you agree that we all pray for the people in Texas, but not only that, I mean, there's so many other things that we can pray for. I don't necessarily want to single anything out, but how have you been able to deal with all of the things? And again, you may have touched on this. If you want to add a little bit more, you can. How have you been able to keep the stress out of your life with all of these things going on? Do you look at the news, for example? And if you do, does it affect you in a negative way?
Yeah, well, I will say one of the things that I ramped up quite a bit was was exercise. That was an outlet for me. It's like I've got to push the stress out of my head, out of my body. I need to move. So while many people were kind of becoming more sedentary, I went in the opposite direction. It's like I need to work out again. I've got to just kind of deal with this anxiety. I did find myself, like most people, paying more attention to news and news feeds. And there were moments where I just had to say, okay, there's nothing that's going to happen in the next 24 hours that I have to know about that's going to impact my life. I've got to set it aside. I've got to break away from it. It was recognizing when it goes from being informed to being inflamed. And, you want to be passionate and purposeful about, helping to be part of change where possible, but you can't do that if you are kind of overwhelmed by emotion that isn't controlled and directed. So there were many points where I would just say, all right, that's enough. Step away, no more news. I don't want to see it right now. Not because I don't care, but because I care about my own well-being as well. And, frankly, reading 5 more news stories isn't going to provide positive value. It's just going to get me spun up. So stepping away from news was helpful. I get outside every day. Doesn't matter what the weather is. I don't like cold. This is not my favorite time of year. I don't like to be cold and wet, but I'm going to get outside anyway, because I just have to step away from the same 4 walls. I'm a water person, so my happiest time is out in the kayak and just kind of quiet stillness. But it's recognizing when you need those times to step away and to just, what's causing you that anxiety? What's that source? And you can control it more than you realize.
Certainly have to prioritize. There's no doubt about that. What's important in life. And I'd like to say that among the things you said, not only this week, but also last week, I love the idea that of you putting God first, then your family, then your business. That comes last. But it's kind of interesting that if you put the first 2 before business, it's amazing how that affects your business, making it even more profitable and worthwhile. So I applaud you as far as that is concerned. Well, listen, again, I know you did this last week, but give the people your contact information if they'd like to get in touch with you. Absolutely.
Well, you can see all of our social media links and all of that information on our website, simplechange.com. And you can reach out to me directly at Becky@simplechange.com.
Well, Becky, I'd like to thank you for being with us over the past couple of weeks. It's been very insightful. And I'd like to thank also our audience for tuning in. And I would like to say that, again, if you're going through something that you would not like going through, or if it's good or if it's bad, just keep in mind that there's always more good things coming through down the road. So we'll see you next time.